When I repainted my quiet countryside ranch a fiery shade of crimson, I expected a few raised eyebrows. What I didn't expect was for the HOA president, Linda, to storm onto my property screaming bloody murder, and certainly not to faint when I handed her the deed to the entire HOA block. Chapter 1. A quiet return. After spending 10 years abroad in New Zealand, I finally decided to return home to the States. My father had passed away a year ago, and the ranch he so dearly loved now belonged to me. Nestled in a tranquil suburb governed by a notoriously rigid HOA, it looked mostly the same, except perhaps a little too tidy for my liking. I drove past white picket fences and beige facades. Every house looked nearly identical. It was like someone had pressed copy and paste all the way down the street. My old ranch, tucked away at the end of the cul-de-sac, stood like a sleeping giant. It needed care, but it still had soul. Linda Garvey, the HOA president, was infamous. She maintained the neighborhood like a military base. Lawns cut to exactly 2.5 inches. Only neutral house colors. Trash bins hidden within an hour of pickup. Any deviation meant fines, letters, and public humiliation. My neighbor Margaret whispered over the fence, "You know she's going to flip if you do anything different, right?" I smiled. Good. Chapter 2. The repainting. I wanted to breathe new life into my childhood home. My father had always wanted to paint it red, but the HOA denied him. So, in his honor, I picked a bold crimson color. The crew arrived at dawn on Monday. By Wednesday, the house had transformed. It gleamed under the sun, a beacon of boldness in a sea of beige. Children gawked, adults gossiped. And then Linda arrived. She pulled up in her beige Lexus like a sheriff riding into a lawless town. Dressed in her signature blazer and visor, she marched up my gravel driveway, heels clicking with authority. "Excuse me, what is this monstrosity?" "A ranch," I replied, calm and firm. "This violates at least 5 HOA regulations. You'll need to repaint it back to an approved shade within 7 days or face escalating fines." She pulled out a clipboard and started furiously writing. "Linda," I said, "why don't we talk inside?" Chapter 3. A family secret. As we sat in the living room my dad built with his own hands, I pulled out the thick leather folder he left me. Inside were documents that went back 40 years, land surveys, contracts, and one very specific lease agreement. My dad never sold this land, Linda. He leased it to the HOA, and now that he's gone, that lease transfers to me. She frowned, confused. What does that have to do with the paint? I slid the folder across the table. Everything. This ranch sits on lot 0. You know what that means, right? All the common spaces, the paths, the playground, the clubhouse, they're built on land my family owns. She flipped through the papers, her fingers trembling. That can't be right. Oh, but it is. And that lease? It gives the landowner veto power over all HOA amendments, including the color regulations. Linda went silent. Chapter 4. The meeting. 2 days later, Linda called an emergency board meeting. I decided to attend. The room was filled with stern faces, mostly middle-aged residents who had long accepted Linda's iron grip. This meeting is to address a violation of HOA Regulation 4.3. Exterior paint colors, she announced. I stood up. Before we begin, I have something to share. I distributed copies of the lease and the deed. My family owns the land this HOA is built on, as per the lease agreement signed in 1984. The landowner has the right to override any bylaw that infringes on homeowner rights. Gasps filled the room. One man, Dan from Maple Drive, said, "You mean we've been getting fined for nothing?" "Not for nothing," I said. "For control." Chapter 5. Linda's downfall. Linda tried to fight back. She hired a lawyer, sent me letters, and even threatened to sue. But the lease was airtight. Her lawyer eventually backed down. Behind closed doors, more neighbors began speaking up. Margaret told me about the time Linda fined her for having a too colorful wreath on her door. Paul had been threatened for leaving a kayak in his driveway overnight. It wasn't long before a petition circulated to remove Linda from her position. Over 70% of homeowners signed it. The recall meeting was packed. Linda refused to speak. She just sat there, eyes empty. When the vote came in, she was removed unanimously. Chapter 6. Rebuilding the HOA. We created a transitional committee. I joined, alongside Margaret, Dan, and even a few younger homeowners, who had long stayed quiet. We rewrote the bylaws from the ground up. No more dictating house colors. No more fines without warnings. No more treating residents like children. Instead, we focused on safety, community events, and real issues, like fixing the sidewalks and improving street lighting. We organized potlucks, garage sales, and kids' art days. The neighborhood, once frozen in fear, began to thaw. Chapter 7. The Emotional Toll. Behind my confident stance, I was grieving. This ranch held memories of my father. Repainting it was more than an act of rebellion. It was an act of mourning, of reclaiming something that had been lost. One night, I sat on the porch with Margaret. "He would have been proud," she said. I nodded, eyes misty. "He always said this place should feel alive, not beige." Chapter 8. Redemption and Growth. A month later, Linda knocked on my door. I wanted to apologize," she said. She looked tired, older. I let power get to my head. I thought I was protecting the neighborhood, but I was just controlling it. I didn't gloat. I just nodded. We all mess up. What matters is what we do next. She walked away quietly. Chapter 9. A new kind of home. The Crimson Ranch became iconic. People drove by to see it. Some homeowners painted their homes pale blue, olive green, even sunflower yellow. It wasn't chaos, it was character. A journalist from the local paper wrote a piece titled, "The Ranch That Broke the Beige Barrier." One HOA board from another town even reached out for advice. Our neighborhood became a symbol of peaceful rebellion and community reform. Final chapter. Legacy. I walk the trails my dad built. The kids call them Red Trail and Papa's Path. Flowers bloom where fear once lived. I stand on my porch, crimson wood warm under my hand, and look out at a neighborhood that's finally alive. This isn't just my home. It's a legacy of standing tall, of breaking chains, of painting your life in your own colors. All it took was one coat of red.